In this video, I'll show the new Fire Modifier display that was developed for Mons 1914, the Mad Minute. Mons 1914 is the second game in the Rifle and Spade Series, Gallipoli 1915, Churchill's greatest gamble being the first. The Fire Modifier display was developed for Mons. It is mathematically the same as Gallipoli, so you can use it in either game, but it is much faster to use. This video includes a lot of examples, but in a nutshell what it does is the new system replaces this Fire DRM table, which had many rows, many columns, many subtypes, and although the effect was correct, it was just a little bit too hard to use. And it replaces that by this Fire Modifier display. What's happened now is that every single cross matrix check on the old table is now a single row here, so you can just go down and say, is it moving, is it in scrub, is it hiding and plunging fire, and you don't have to look up any of the special cases. So you just come down and you move the cubes across depending on what applies. That reveals the modifiers, and you add up the modifiers that are visible, and then you record the final net value over here so that you've got it easily in mind when you look up the fire table, or as so often happens, if one fire, the next fire is the same as the previous fire, then you can just look up the net value. This column is common for all fires, and these apply to artillery. This is range and there's density as well. So let's look at a very simple situation. Here we have the 57th Ottoman Regiment firing at the 1st Australian Battalion, and they're both in scrub, both at the same elevation, and there's no field works, nothing special. Now we move to the Fire Modifier display. Each row describes a particular situation, either terrain or, say, if they're in field works or if they're moving. We move the cubes across to show whether a DRM applies or not, and then it's an easy matter of just adding up the DRMs that are visible. Now I'm going to zoom in on the section that matters. For this fire, nobody's limbered or moving, there's no hexide cost. However, the Australians are in the scrub, so we move that over. The remaining modifiers are all to do with field works or hiding or plunging fire, so this is the only one that applies. As you can see, there's a row for low angle fire, meaning rifle fire or shrapnel, which is the situation we have, or howitzers. So the only modifier that's visible is a +1. So we move across to the net table and we move this down to the +1 row. And that's it. Now we come to the fire table. The Ottomans have 2 fire points, so we choose the 2 column, and then the net shifts is 1, so we use that row. We come down the 2 to 1 row and see that we have a 22. And we roll the dice, and we see that we get a 21, which means that's 1 hit on the Anzacs. So let's look at a fairly simple, fairly common opportunity fire example. Here we'll move the Australians up the shrapnel gully, so they're not climbing, they're just spending 1 movement point, staying within the scrub. On the Fire Modifier display, we find that they're moving, they didn't spend any hexide movement points, and they are in scrub. So it's -3 +1 is a net -2. And then we move the marker on the net table to -2, just so that we remember what the value is, so that when you look across on the fire table, there it is, in case you need it. Or, as often happens, if the next fire is exactly the same, you can just look at what the net was from the previous fire. And on the fire table, again, it's 2 fire points. We come down to -2. In this case, it's 0.33, and we roll, and we get a 15, so the Anzacs take a hit, and of course they'll take a morale check as well. So there you have it. You look at the situation, you move the appropriate blocks, you add up the DRMs, you move the net DRM marker as an aide de memoire, and then you look at the fire table, number of fire points, and the row down, giving you the loss number. And that's all there is.